Today we will be discussing Chapter 8, Section 2, which is found on page 203 of your book. It is titled, How Species Interact with Each Other. When you finish this section, you should be able to explain the difference between a niche and a habitat, give examples of parts of a niche, describe the 5 major types of interactions between species, differentiate between parasitism and predation, and explain how symbiotic relationships may evolve. In your science journal, I would like you to write a short paragraph describing a carnivore such as a fox through the eyes of its intended meal, such as a mouse. An organism's niche is related to the role a species plays within its ecosystem. It describes how an organism responds to the available resources, such as food and shelter, how it survives or competes for resources, and how it reproduces. A niche is an organism's pattern of use of its habitat. It can also be thought of as the range of conditions in which a species can survive. A niche is different from a habitat. An organism's habitat is a location where it lives. For example, these mushrooms' habitat is on a decaying log. Interactions between species are categorized into 5 major types, which are competition, predation, parasitism, mutualism, and commensalism. This diagram is found on page 204 of the book. These categories are based on whether each species causes benefit or harm to the other species in the given relationship. Competition is the relationship between 2 or more organisms or species when both species attempt to use the same limited resource. Members of the same species must compete with each other because they require the same resources when they occupy the same niche. Some of the individuals eventually do not acquire enough resources and do not reproduce, or they end up dying. Species can compete even if they never come into direct contact with each other. For example, suppose that one species feeds on a certain plant during the day and that another species feeds on the same plant during the night. Because they use the same food source, the 2 species are considered indirect competitors. When 2 species with similar niches are placed together in the same ecosystem, we might expect one species to be more successful than the other, resulting in the other species' death. But in the course of evolution, some species have developed adaptations that decrease competition. This is why you can have several species of birds living in the same tree. One of the species' beaks may be adapted to eat seeds produced by the tree, while another bird's beak is adapted to eat the insects found on the bark of the tree. Another way competition can be reduced between species is by dividing up the niche in time or space. Niche restrictions occur when each species uses less of the niche than they are capable of using. This type of competition is seen in closely related species of organisms that use the same resource within a habitat. This example from the book shows how one type of barnacle species is found only in the upper level of the intertidal zone when another barnacle species is present. When the other species is removed, the barnacles normally found in the upper level can also be found at deeper levels. Thus, the actual niche used by a species may be smaller then the potential niche. Predation is an interaction between two species in which one organism captures and feeds on another organism. The predator feeds on the other species, known as the prey. In complex food webs, a predator may also be a prey of another species. Most organisms have evolved some mechanism to avoid or defend against predators. This diagram found on page 207 shows how some predators eat only specific types of prey. In this kind of close relationship, the sizes of each population tend to increase and decrease in linked patterns. Parasitism is a relationship between two species where one species benefits while the other species is harmed. An organism that lives in or on another organism and feeds on the other organism is a parasite. A flea is an example of a parasite. The organism the parasite takes its nourishment from, which is the dog in the picture, is known as the host. The differences between a parasite and a predator are that a parasite spends most of its life in or on the host, and parasites do not usually kill their hosts. In fact, the parasite has an evolutionary advantage if it allows its host to live longer. However, when this occurs, the host is often weakened or exposed to diseases because of the parasite. Many species depend on another species for survival. In some cases, neither organism can survive alone. Mutualism is a relationship between two species in which both species benefit. An example is lichens. Lichens are relationships between an algae and a fungus. The algae provides the fungus with food, which is sugar, through photosynthesis, while the fungus provides the algae with moisture, mineral nutrients, and a place to live. Commensalism is a relationship between two organisms in which one organism benefits and the other is unaffected. An example is the relationship between a shark and a type of fish called remora. Remoras attach themselves to sharks and feed on scraps of food left over from the shark's meals. The remora is benefited because the shark provides the food, while the shark is not benefited or harmed. All of the different relationships I have just discussed are considered to be symbiotic relationships. Symbiosis is a relationship in which two different organisms live in close association with each other. It is most often used to describe a relationship in which at least one species benefits. Over time, species in close relationships may co-evolve. These species may evolve adaptations that reduce the harm or improve the benefits of the relationship.